violation gangs. Well, we all know what I'm talking about. Begins with R. Imagine a country where thousands of girls and women have been drugged, abused, and violated, where the police refused to take underage girls back to their parents because they were voluntarily with those men, where unrelated taxi drivers were allowed to collect underage girls to take them home for use from police stations, where social services didn't investigate questions, where a council told a women's refuge they would withdraw all funding if they excluded a woman who was taking vulnerable women to use them for sexual exploitation, where the Crown Prosecution Service struggled to prosecute all but a handful of offenders, where the former head of that CPS is Prime Minister, even though I'm not suggesting anything crossed his desk, where the public inquiry cost 200 million, but only went to 15 of the 50 towns where gangs have been reported, where Channel 4, which is, let's face it, one of the best for documentaries, doesn't want to run documentaries on our gangs, but does one immediately on an instance of a fake accusation, where no religious leaders have spoken out for the victims, where the crimes have gone on for decades, where the BBC described migrants who passed a girl round like a toy as less experienced than the girls they abused. I guess that makes it okay. Victim shaming is what the BBC would normally call it when they effectively say she deserved it. It's not hard to imagine most of my viewers probably know this country because they live in it. Yet the Conservatives avoided a full investigation unless they appeared racist. The police are alleged to have been afraid to investigate for decades unless they were racist. The councils refused to take action. The imams seem to have said nothing. The social services in whose care many of the victims were staying said nothing and did nothing. And the abusers can't be deported, say the judges, because they have the right to a family life. Something like 15 years ago, I went to a wedding in Yorkshire, and two old women at my table were talking. And the one said, "Are these rumours true?" And the other, who actually lived in Yorkshire, muttered something along the lines of, "Well, the rumours are persistent. Everyone knows them. No one wants to talk about them." And I wondered what these rumours were. A few glasses of wine, some eavesdropping later, and I had an outline of the accusation. I could also tell that the woman didn't want to say it was true, but she did believe it. 15 years later, the media, the political class, the councils, the prosecutors, the papers, the TV channels, the police, and both the Conservative and Labour government don't seem to have done much to grab this issue by the quick and resolve it, to shine light upon the problem. It's reached the point where it is openly said that thousands of women were used for sex without consent. When a recent trial found perpetrators guilty, there were claims that the victims were told to change their witness statements to not mention that they would like them deported at the end of their sentence. Either there has been an open secret that thousands of women, many underage, have been abused by an ethnic minority, or there is a nasty story being spread to besmirch that group. Surely now is the time to understand the problem and take firm action to ensure it never happens again. And yes, frankly, to punish some of those public servants who get their nice little gongs and their nice fat pension while they stood by and watched people's lives burned. But Jess Philips, who only won her seat by 700 votes, thinks it's not necessary. She is a self-avowed feminist. So it can't be that she doesn't care about the thousands of women whose lives were ruined by rape gangs. It seems pretty clear that there won't be an inquiry, and the British establishment will continue to look the other way. But at some point, the truth will come out in full, and the longer it is suppressed, and the longer people are given pensions and gongs with no questions of the harm they've allowed through turning a blind eye for fear of community tensions or charges of racism, the bigger the backlash will be when the truth is acknowledged. Could it be that these atrocities occurred primarily in Labour constituencies, where Labour MPs, councillors, and those with whom they were very pally were either responsible for covering up, empowering, ignoring, or participating in these crimes? Could it be that they were worried they'll lose more seats at the next election if they point out who committed the majority of these crimes? Could it be they're protecting the racists that are unfairly blaming one particular community? The British people have clearly asked for controls on immigration, and successive governments have lied to our faces. They've promised cuts and fueled growth. Is it any surprise when the accusation is that thousands of mainly white women were abused and exploited by hundreds of men from one group that people want an answer? The solution to both these challenges is to be honest, candid, and to fulfill promises, not to refuse to discuss them, besmirch those who ask questions, and kick the ball down the road. The time has come for a reckoning, for an honesty, and to draw a line under this issue. And without a public inquiry, what is the mechanism for this?